All right, guys, welcome to solving multi-step inequalities. So some of this should be review, and we're going to talk a little bit about some simple examples for some two-step inequalities just to refresh our memory before we get into this idea of multi-step. So let's start with the inequality 4x plus 3 is less than negative 1. So what's really nice about inequalities is the properties of equations that we use, subtraction, division, multiplication, addition, properties of equality are going to apply here. So we can go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides. Okay, and we're just going to be left with 4x is less than negative 1. Or negative 4, excuse me, after I add those together. Now, I just divide each side by 4, and I'm left with x is less than negative 1. In interval notation, you would have negative infinity, comma 1, and there'd be no brackets because you cannot include negative 1 here. Okay, so we didn't have to flip the inequality because we did not divide or multiply by a negative. So let's look at a second example here. Okay, and so let's look at 5x is greater than 8x plus 27. Okay, so now we have variables on both sides. So what we can do is go ahead and I'm going to actually just subtract the 8x from both sides. So there's that subtraction property of, in this case it'd be inequality, right? So we have negative 3x, and now that's going to be greater than 27. Now this is where you have to be careful. We are going to be dividing now by a negative number, and so that means we have to flip the inequality. Okay, so we'll go ahead and divide by that negative 3, and we're going to have, we're going to have x, now here's where the sign flips, is less than negative 9. Okay, so that's our solution in interval notation. That is from negative infinity works all the way into negative 9 because x has to be less than that. And again, it's open circle here, or in parentheses because we don't include that value. So remember, when you multiply or divide an inequality by negative, you have to flip the sign. Okay, let's get into ones that are now really kind of multi-step and what this quick lesson is all about. So we have negative 3 times the quantity, 2x minus 5 plus 1 is going to be greater than or equal to 4. So this is where they think it's multi-step. You know, there's more than one step to do this, or more than two steps. So here we have to distribute. We see we have 3 times some quantity. So let's go ahead and distribute that 3 through. We get negative 6 plus 15, negative 6x plus 15. Don't forget that 1. That's greater than or equal to 4. So now we can combine these like terms, and we're left with negative 6x plus 16 is greater than or equal to 4. We will now subtract 16 from both sides. There's that subtraction property in this case of inequality. And we're going to be left with negative 6x, and that's going to be greater than or equal to negative 12. Now I don't flip the sign just because I get a negative output here. I flip the inequality when I divide or multiply by negative, and you can see I'm dividing by negative 6 here. So again, there's going to be that sign change. So x is less than or equal to 2. Now, if we were going to do this in bracket-wise or interval notation, we would have a bracket this time, 2 comma to infinity. That's the solution set. That's interval notation. On a number line, we would simply draw this nice little number line here, and I'd put 2 down, and I'd fill it in, and then I make a circle going up and to the right because that's where all the values are greater than or equal to 2. So let's look at 2 more examples, some special cases where we get some funny answers. So let's look at negative 2 times the quantity, 3x plus 1, and that's going to be greater than negative 6x plus 7. So just like the last example, let's go ahead and distribute, and so we'll get negative 6x minus 2, and that's going to be greater than negative 6x plus 7. Now, if you're studied and you remember equations, these two expressions have the same slope, negative 6, so they would be parallel. If I continue to solve, we know that parallel lines never intersect, so if the lines don't intersect, there can't be a solution. So we'll get negative 2 here is greater than 7. This is a false statement. That's false. that does not work. That is not true. So there is no solution here. Okay, we say this is no solution. There's no solution to this inequality. Okay, in the last example, something very similar, and we'll take 5 times the quantity, 2x minus 3 minus 7x, and that's going to be less than or equal to 3x plus 8. Okay, so let's again distribute. So we'll go ahead and distribute. We get 10x minus 15 minus 7x, and that's less than or equal to 3x plus 8. Okay, so I can combine my like terms. 10x minus 7x gives me 3x's minus 15, and that's less than 3x plus 8. Now you could say, well, now look, oh, the slope's the same, there's no solution. Let's be careful. Let's solve this out by subtracting 3x from both sides. Okay, and we get negative 15 is less than or equal to 8. That is a true statement. So this example, now I get a true statement, is all real numbers. Any number will work for this. So there's a big difference there. We have an inequality that's true, and notice the slopes were the same, 3 in this case, but when we simplified it, we actually got something that is true. That is always true. Okay, so that's all we have for solving inequalities. If you guys have any questions or comments, you can type them below, or you can go ahead and email me, and we'll see you next time.